Hi, Steve Casey here. This is another story with Steve. This is about baseball being my background music. I love baseball, but I'm not the kind of guy that just plops his butt down and sits and watch game after game after game. I've always got it in the background, especially when I'm working on my eBay store and sitting in front of my computer doing work related stuff. I've always got another monitor on with some kind of baseball game. And it's winter time, so I'm jonesing for baseball. I go to MLB.com and there's 2,000 games on archive, and I just sit there and play it low and glance over it every once in a while and see what the excitement's about, and then go back to my work. My fetish for baseball, the first recollection of the first TV program I ever saw was in 1956, and Don Larson pitched a perfect game in a World Series, and I was a kid and I had no idea what that meant. And my dad actually let me play hooky from school that day because games were in the daytime. And he tried to explain to me how rare a perfect game was. So I got it. That was, we lived in Denver for a couple of years. And then we moved back to Miami. And my dad took me to, I was just starting Little League. And he took me to a golf charity event with my little signature book and my little league baseball hat on and walking around. Please, sir, can I have your autograph? And they were all the baseball players in South Florida went to this charity event right before spring training. The first set of guys that I looked at were leaning against a fence waiting for tee time. And it was this three guys. And I walked up to them, and I knew exactly who they were because I'd been really studying this game. And it was Jackie Robinson, Don Newcomb, and Roy Campanella. These were the Dodgers that made that team great in the 50s. Also, obviously, Jackie Robinson was first African American to play, and this was big stuff, man. So I walk up to Newcomb, the guy in the middle. Please, sir, can I have your autograph? And he signs it. And I start walking to Jackie Robinson and Roy Campanella, and I look down at my signature book, and Newcomb had signed Jackie Robinson. And I look back at him, and I walk back to him. I said, "Hey, you're not." He says, "Who am I?" I said, "You're an excellent pitcher," or something like that. I'm a kid. I'm bumbling and stumbling, and he started laughing. They all started laughing. So I get their autographs, and that stuck obviously in my memory. Then I walk up to. Actually, it was four guys. Billy Martin was in this. Yogi, Whitey, and Mickey. And years later, this was after they'd played their round of golf, and years later, my old man told me that Mickey and Billy Martin was also in this autograph session. Were absolutely hammered. They'd been in the hospitality suite banging back beers. And I had my picture taken. I no longer have it. My wife, during my divorce, threw out all kinds of stuff that I had, and this picture was one of them. Anyway, I was absolutely amazed that my dad could walk up and talk to these people like they were human beings instead of the gods that they were in the baseball world. And he started talking about New York and Jersey and restaurants, and I'm sitting there with my mouth open going, "Oh my God, I can't believe it." Then my dad says, "Go over and get that guy's autograph." And I look over and I see this old guy, just this small, tiny man. And I go, why? And he said, because he's in the Hall of Fame. I said, he's not a baseball player, he's an old guy. And my dad started laughing. He says, well, he played baseball in the 30s and 40s for Pittsburgh, he and his brother. And it was a guy named Paul Wainer. And I walked up to him. I said, please, sir, can I have your autograph? And he signed it. Just a beautiful signature. Just real meticulous. And during the course of that day, I got his autograph like 3 or 4 times. I have no idea why. Several decades later, in the 80s, when baseball was a big thing, I stopped into a baseball card store. And the guy was a big Pittsburgh fan, and he had this homage to Paul Wainer. And I went, you want to buy an autograph? And he says, yeah. So I get the autograph. It's matched, perfect, whatever. I said, what do you got in mine? And he says, I'll give you $600 for it. So I went, oh my God. So I said, well, I got 4 of them. How much you give me for the 4 of them? And he gave me $1,800 for 4 pieces of paper. I couldn't believe it. But there's a picture of Paul Wainer and his brother Lloyd, who's on the far left. And naturally, I have no idea when or why this picture was taken. Paul Wainer standing between Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. And that's when it hit me. I said, Jesus, the history of this game is incredible. And these guys they actually played on the same field as the Red Sox and the Cubs are still playing. It's incredible. Excuse me. Ice water. So, things go on. I'm still a baseball fan. I'm still, even when I was a hippie, even when I did a lot of things I shouldn't have been doing. And I moved to Atlanta. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about this one. When I was a little leaguer, we used to go to the North Miami Recreation Field. And North Miami High School was adjacent to the Recreation Center. And all the high school players would go out there and practice in the summertime. So all the little leaguers, me and my buddies, we'd go out there and we'd shag fly balls in the outfield. And every day for 2 summers, we got 1 or 2 at bats against this guy. And in 2 years, and I was pretty good, okay? But in 2 years, I think I made contact maybe half a dozen times. Turns out 3 guys on this North Miami High School, and these guys were obviously a little older than us. 3 of these guys went to the major leagues. And that's Steve Carlton, and he's in the Hall of Fame. And we got to bat against him every day. Then I went to Atlanta. And they had a baseball team, but they weren't very good. And the stands looked like this almost all the time. The attendance was terrible. So my girlfriend, who was in the adult entertainment business, woke me up on a Saturday morning, and she and 2 of her girlfriends been up all night after they got done dancing. And they had tickets to a baseball game. So we went to a baseball game. And it was the weirdest thing. It was the Saturday game of the week. And they actually asked everybody to move down to the lower deck and take any seat we wanted between the third base and the first baseline. In other words, condense the whole crowd. And we realized it was because there was national cameras on this game, and it looked like there was nobody there. So we went down there, and we sat there, had a couple of beers, left early. The girls got little skimpy outfits on so they get suntans and everything. And we get back home. The phone starts ringing off the hook. And it's friends of mine and friends of hers and other people we know. And they're all calling saying, dude, you're on national TV with 3 women. They didn't take the camera off of you. You got more camera time than the baseball players did, because naturally I'm sitting there with the best 3 best good-looking young women in the whole place. And I thought that was hilarious. This is way before VCR and all that stuff. So, a couple years after that, I'm traveling salesman. And during high school, we were a little Catholic school, but we had 3 excellent pitchers on our team, so therefore we were pretty good. This tall, rangy guy right here was the 3rd best pitcher. He wasn't even the best pitcher or the 2nd best pitcher on our high school team. He was the 3rd best pitcher. He threw junk and curveballs and sliders. Big guy, but you think he'd throw a fastball, but he didn't. So I'm at Fenway in 1973, I think it was. And I got there early because I like to watch batting practice, and there he is out there shagging balls. So I yelled to him, Newhouser, and he looks over and he goes, what the hell are you doing here? I said, me? I said, what are you doing here? Did you steal that uniform? Don't they know? So that was a fun weekend, and we went out and had beers and all that stuff and hung out with some of his buddies. He was a borderline major leaguer, but by God, he was a major league pitcher, and it lasted a couple seasons. Later on, when I started selling Porsches, here's a picture of my number 1 customer. This guy bought 9 vehicles, I think, personally from me, and was responsible for several dozen others because he talked me up like crazy. He walked in the showroom one day. He says, I want that car, but I want those wheels on it. I'll be back in 15 minutes. I said, it ain't going to happen. I said, it takes, 2-3 hours to just change wheels and get them precision right. So we had a great relationship for a couple of years, and lots of fun stories with David Justice. But the all-time great guy, the best professional athlete I ever met, was a guy named John Smoltz, who's in the Hall of Fame. There's a picture of Smiling John about to get inducted in the Hall of Fame. And John Smoltz was such a nice man. And I sold him a car. He was a spokesperson for our dealership, our group of dealerships. And he used to give us tickets. So he came up to me one day and said, you want tickets? And his tickets were great. They were, behind home plate and all this. But the one that spoiled me rotten was when we got there, I called my girlfriend and said, we're going to a baseball game. When we got there, it was a luxury suite that he had, part of his contract. And usually, I'd been there, I'd looked up there and said, geez, I want to get up there. But I'd never been inside one, and it was all that it was supposed to be. And we were the only ones there. It was just me and her. And everybody else in the other boxes were looking at us like, who the hell are those people? Wow. So, I've always had this thing about baseball, and I've always enjoyed the little stories and the history of it and the nuances of it and the chess game and such. But again, I never watch games. I, have them on, but I don't sit there and study every pitch and every play. So, that's kind of, this isn't mine, but that's kind of what my desk looks like. The main computer in front, where I do my work, and then off to the side, I got that baseball game on. As a matter of fact, I'm going to watch the LA Dodgers last season with Vin Scully, and just so I can hear that soothing voice, and then I'm going to get back to work. Thanks for watching. See you. Bye.